My name is Wilfred Rodebush, and I was a Kent State student back from 1968 to 1973 in architecture here in Taylor Hall, and happened to be a sophomore on May 4th, 1970. I had, at that time, was in Columbus on the weekend, probably May 2nd and the 3rd, and came back to Kent State on May 3rd to work on a wood truss project that was due in a structures class Monday morning, May 4th. And I was living in Glen Morris, so I got into town. We were working in somebody's apartment over to the east, and had to then go back and get off the street by 8 o'clock. There was a curfew, and I'm not sure when that started, but you were not allowed to be out, and you were not allowed to be in groups larger than 2. I saw over by Glen Morris, the National Guard were going by in Jeeps, and I saw them throw a tear gas canister at a group that was probably 4 or 5 people. It went over them and didn't have any effect because the tear gas blew towards the apartments. But I came up then, and I knew there was some soldiers that were guardsmen, because I needed to get to Taylor Hall Sunday night to get my equipment to do my model. And so when I came onto campus, and I can't remember the buildings, but off from the main street coming from Glen Morris, you were stopped. There was 2 guardsmen standing there not letting you on campus. And I said, well, I need to. I've got to go up to Taylor Hall to get my drawing equipment. And one of them just said, go down by Memorial Hall and you can come in that way. There's nobody down there. And I thought I could tell that person was a student because he knew the campus. So I came around and got my equipment, did my project, we turned it in at 7:45. I went back and went to bed after pulling an all-nighter. And then I remember I had a basketball class, I think around 11 something, so it was probably, I forgot the first class, so I came to the second one, and apparently must have come to class just shortly after the shooting, because I went to Memorial Gym to go to class, and then I got to the door and it said all classes canceled because the National Guard's bivouacking in the gym. So I came up from the gym over the knoll here, not over the knoll, but on the other side of the knoll there was a sidewalk. I was heading to the old Student Union to get something for breakfast or whatever, and I ran into my roommate right in this area, and he was kind of frantic, saying there was multiple people shot. It was just chaos, between the soldiers and State Patrol and students, and I didn't realize that there were bodies here and students had been shot. And I went on to the Union, and then, kind of a long story, but they basically said if you're from within, say, 80 miles, that you need to go on home. So my roommate and I went on down. I lived in the Canton area, so we went on home, and it was kind of interesting. We went to a drugstore there waiting for my mother to come pick us up. My hair is very short because I was in the Marine Reserve at the time. My roommate's hair was shoulder length. And we were sitting there at this counter, probably having a soda or something, waiting for my mother, and on TVs about the Kent State shooting. And you could tell the people there some of them were just irritated, that they would like to have been here and do some shooting themselves. And Richard and I were thinking, I'm really glad they didn't know we were Kent State students. It hurt my mother. I'm from a little farm town south of Canton, and she worked in the school cafeteria, and there was some women there that were very close friends, but when they started making comments about they should have shot them all, you just realized they had no idea what a campus was like. And there was some troublemakers here. I don't even think they were students. I think they came to campus, and you'll hear all kinds of rumors about why it happened. I did watch, sometimes you'd have SDS and you'd have different marches, and as a reservist at the time, I was probably maybe a corporal. It did bother me to see people not care about us soldiers and the war, But on the other hand, when I think about why the students were protesting at the time, was the United States had gone into Cambodia, and that was the main reason for the whole incident here. The other thing is, you got to realize the National Guard was just coming off of a bivouac in the Ravenna area where they'd been shot at off of bridges. So they were escorting trucks. I think it was a union strike. And so they had been bivouacking maybe for a month or more, probably exhausted from that. So they were moved from that probably to the gym to be here on campus. And then you, being a soldier and a student at the same time, you saw both sides. So you saw students that couldn't stand soldiers and soldiers that couldn't stand students. So I think probably the mixture was not good, having the soldiers here and having students with deferments, and it was just a bad chemistry. It probably would have not happened if the governor had sent in like a lot of state patrol or some police agency versus soldiers. But if you pan right over here, this is where the guard was actually standing on the knoll over here by the mushroom, and then they shot down towards the parking lot. And you can see, if you look over, you'll see a little peace symbol on the Corps 10 steel statue. There's a bullet hole there. It got hit in the tree right kind of to the left of those girls right here got hit. And I just remember they took a core sample out of it probably to get the bullet out. But if you look out in the parking lot, then you can see where the 4 students were shot and killed. The closest one, and I just paced it off, and I counted about 85 yards, 85 steps down to Jeffries. This is the one that was the famous picture with he was laying face down, and the girl over him was from Florida. She was I think maybe a runaway. But that was the closest one, and then Allison Krause was out the second closest, and then the other 2 were on out farther. And then there was a student in the background over in one of the dorms, I think just came out of the dormitory and got hit and paralyzed. And then I'd understood, I don't know whether it's true, but that there was a shot that hit Tri-Towers down here and hit by an elevator and just about hit a nut. So it was, it brings back a lot of memories. And that semester then, we all pretty much was the end of classes. It was on a quarter system. And I heard later that the faculty decided to continue pretty much by correspondence. So we finished our classes at home and through the mailed in. We received things from the professors, homework, reading assignments, things like that. And we actually finished the semester by mail and got credit for the semester. It was kind of odd though. My wife and I both, we didn't know each other at the time because we met a couple years after this, and we both happened to be in the tennis courts that quarter. So now you tell me how you finish and you get credit for a tennis course by correspondence.